Hello, my magnificent mountain-dwelling folk, and welcome back to yet another episode of our beautiful vault in Fallout RimWorld. At the moment, my friends, we are still tending to and nursing back to health our NCR allies who helped us with a mega Deathclaw attack last episode. They should be healed up and ready to leave in no time, but until then, we're going to be focusing on taking care of our wonderful wasteland clientele at the bar and hotel and our stores, and more importantly, gathering up resources to go about continuing the wonderful expansion of our vault. Speaking of, the very first thing that we're doing in this episode, after collecting up plenty of steel, is finishing off some of the vacant rooms that we mined out last episode. This way we have plenty of room for expansion in terms of our population. As for right now, I plan on keeping these exclusively for vault dwellers who join us, not for paying customers, as we've previously discussed with maybe some tenants who end up joining us. We're going to do some more luxurious rooms for them, but that'll be later. With a larger population, though, this will also require a larger cafeteria and or dining room where everyone can go and eat. So that's exactly what we started mining out, and then eventually furnishing with some new benches and tables and things of that nature. Nothing too fancy, all made of steel, but it doesn't have to be too fancy when you just want something to eat, I suppose. We did, however, throw in a nice lizard skin rug from all those Deathclaws that we had killed last episode, and also we threw in some nice steel planter boxes for some flowers, which should make things a little bit more fancy, I suppose. Now, just across the hall, we're actually going to be reducing the size of our kitchen. We're going to be adding in a trash can to keep this area much cleaner automatically, and we are also going to be adding in a nice sink. That way our work speed is increased and everyone can of course keep their hands nice and clean. But you might be saying, why are you doing that? Why are you reducing the size of the kitchen? Well, my friends, it has come to my attention that we don't currently have a place to screen new vault dwellers who are coming in. Well, we didn't, but we do now. As you can see, our kitchen is smaller and we have our dining room above the old one, and the old one has now been converted into something of a screening and interview area. And this was a great suggestion from our good friend, the Real Valerian 9722. Apologies if I mispronounced your name, but thank you ever so much for the suggestion. It was a great addition to the vault, I feel, and I think everyone is much safer for it. Speaking of safety, it would seem that our NCR counterparts are completely safe and sound from their injuries they were previously suffering from at the hands of those filthy Deathclaws, and they are now playing poker in one of our fine establishments before leaving, giving us quite a bit of goodwill. It helps to have friends in high places. Speaking again of our establishments, though, this entire small little town that we've built in front of the vault here, I asked you guys last episode about a proper name for it, and we do have a good name for this community, with that being Sunny Sands, which just so happens to be legally distinctive and also in remembrance of the NCR community Shady Sands, as mentioned by our good friend Borland8513. A wonderful suggestion, my friend. Thank you ever so much, and thank you to everyone who suggested community names. I of course also asked for names for our bar, with it now being named the Giggling Geiger, which is a really good name as well that I really enjoy, and this one is by our good friend Colum Kearney 4953. It really is quite fitting given the radioactive hellscape that we find ourselves in. And last but not least, for our hotel, we are going to be naming it the Slog. This one coming from our good friend Ian Nicholson 2290, and I think that this one is quite fitting as well, given that it's mostly made of scrap metal, some bricks, and also some radioactive tree logs, so I like it as well. And again, thank you ever so much to anyone and everyone who suggested names. I'm sure we'll have plenty more things to name in the very near future, like our businesses, once we really get them off the ground. But as for right now, we are going to be putting a pretty heavy priority and focus on our vault once more. As you can see, we're, funny enough, removing the outer walls of the vault, cracking open the outer shell, and we're actually replacing it with some different types of vault walls, these being exterior. Now, of course, this might seem a bit odd at first glance, but as you can see, the previous walls that we have been using have 350 hit points, while the exterior that we've replaced them with have 7,000. Nobody's going to be getting into this vault anytime soon. It does appear, though, that we're going to have to begin some pretty major mining operations once more in the nearby hills. As you can see, these exterior vault walls do cost a lot more steel than usual, but it's well worth it. While we sent out a small party to do some mining, I noticed that we had a Deathclaw roaming around the town. Now, this is bad for business, but instead of slaughtering this beautiful giant, what if instead we tried to tame it? I know, a little outlandish, but I think we can do it. We of course sent out Shorty to do the taming, and along with him our sentient Deathclaw, just in case things go south. But it appears that they didn't, and we ended up taming our very first Deathclaw. An incredible feat. I'm gonna level with you. I didn't think that this was going to happen. I thought for sure it was going to attack and we'd have to kill it, but I guess not. And I do think this is due in part, or solely due to the fact that Shorty has a 13 in animals, which is pretty darn good. And it's a good thing that he does, because there's an 80% chance of them attacking us if the taming fails, so we'll see how it goes in the future. As for right now, though, we do have our very own carnivorous creature roaming through our vault halls and through our town, so we should probably get to taming it, of course. As we're doing that training, though, we're also going to begin some new research on Vault Tech consumables, which is going to unlock many things like chocolate and lavish meals, but also beer, which at some point we would like to start brewing ourselves instead of purchasing somewhere else or getting off dead raiders for our bar. As we are analyzing the ancient pre-war brewing methods and what have you for this research, though, we're also going to begin mining out another lower section of the mountain for our vault, and it looks like it's interrupted by some super mutants coming to skin us alive and to eat our tattered flesh. They appear to have tamed some toxic wasteland animals themselves, with them having a couple of rad scorpions under their command. That's pretty impressive, but not near as impressive as the rocket launcher that their leader was carrying. I suppose things could be worse. It could be a fat man firing mini nukes, so we might be able to handle this. We'll still need to be very cautious. I believe the best thing for us to do is to sneak up into this little valley here to try to attack them preemptively. Normally, with super mutants, I wouldn't want to do this because they could easily kill us out in an open field, but if we let them hit our defenses and walls with those rockets, they're gone. I wanted to try to pick them off one by one here if I could, avoiding that rocket launcher, of course, so we moved in under the cover of night and the foggy rain to try to start doing so. We got a few good hits in, but we would have to quickly retreat. We came extremely close to catching the wrong end of that mighty big boomstick there. Our injuries from gunshots of their rifles and the pain from that would end up slowing us down a bit, leaving us as a sitting duck for the rockets. Instead, some of us without wounds would try to take point, taking cover behind some of the rock formations to fire at them. And it was during this time that we managed to bait them out into a frontal assault against us. Looks like we'll have to take cover in our walls after all, unfortunately. One of the rockets would end up shredding Pan's legs, damn near killing her. Thankfully, though, we and she would manage to be able to hobble back inside. Once we did, we took a closer inspection on her wounds, and it seems that only her right leg had been shredded by the rockets, thankfully. If her other had been shredded as well, there's a good chance we would have completely lost her out there. As we try to stop her bleeding, here come the super mutants, taking cover pretty far away from us in some rock chunks, but not far enough that we can't hit them with our pipe rifles, thankfully. Our laser rifles were great, but their range was less than adequate in situations like more reserved when the super mutants were so stupid they were basically sticking their heads through our embrasures. We had a small group of children in the area as well, who were here begging for some caps to try to purchase something from a nearby NCR town. Unfortunately, it would seem the super mutants were too occupied chasing them down to slaughter them to try to kill us. These sick bastards know no bounds, and we would ensure that they were going to be food for our Deathclaw tonight. And with the death of their leader, they had finally been defeated. There were no more left. Well, there was one, but we also quickly finished him off, and now they're all dead. They were too stupid to flee, otherwise some of them might have got away. On the bright side, they can now be turned into kibble for our Deathclaw, as well as them dropping plenty of food and weapons that we can eat and use ourselves. And with the threat finally neutralized, we could also go about finishing up this southern part in the mountain that we've added on to our vault. I guess it's about daggone time that I told you what it's going to be. This is actually going to be a proper sleeping and training area for our Deathclaws. Yes, that is right, plural. I plan on taming quite a few. You'll also notice that this new area comes a custom fit with a nice freezer where we can store super mutant corpses as well as any corpses realistically to feed to them. Trust me when I tell you the last thing that you want breaking out of its room and roaming around your vault is a hungry Deathclaw, and also an army essentially of hungry Deathclaws is much worse, as I'm sure you could guess. But this kills two birds with one stone. Now, not only are we going to be storing corpses inside where they'll be frozen and eaten, getting rid of any piles of corpses we previously had, but we're also feeding our babies. Now then, we are also going to be doing some mining on the left side across from our Deathclaw training area here, and this is actually going to be a new storage area, or at least an additional storage area, along with being a workshop, something that is long overdue inside the vault, as we've had most of our production areas either in the previous storage area or just out in the hallways, which is not exactly ideal, as I'm sure you could imagine. Now, our little pet projects that we're working on, and grease stains and chem fuel leaking everywhere, will be reserved to this room. And finally, with a place to create it, we can actually start working on some Vault Tech security helmets as well as armor, which we had researched previously. Speaking of research, we also finished our extensive research into Vault Tech consumables, now allowing us to brew our own beer, make our own chocolate. This is something I think we'll be focusing on more in next episode, as I want to start focusing more on tenants and hospitality then. As for right now, I want to focus more on the safety of our tenants and clients, and more importantly, our safety, and that's why our next research project is going to be gun turrets, which is actually going to unlock ceiling turrets for us, which we will be able to use for defense, of course. In the middle of researching this, we also decided to mine out another small section here that is next to the Overseer's office, as well as Bolin, the Overseer's bedroom. We are just going to be making more growing zones here. Really, I didn't know what to put here, and also as population grows, we're going to need more food, so we might as well. But for right now, I had a little light bulb go off in my noodle, and I thought since we need some medicine, as we've been using up a lot of what we already have, and we're going to need cloth to make our Vault Tech armor for security purposes, and just as well we could also use some wood, I started growing those items here until we need food. It then wouldn't take us very long at all to finish up our research into gun turrets, and we would waste absolutely no time finishing up those ceiling turrets in our vault's entrance. If for some reason we have some filthy ne'er-do-wells walking through our gigantic gear door, we want to ensure we can blow them all to hell and turn them into Swiss cheese. Although this would probably be more for people who betray us, and instead of course, coming through the gate, as that is damn near impossible. You may also notice that they're invisible, but I can guarantee you that they are indeed there. For some reason, they don't seem to have a texture. Oh well, maybe it's because they're on the ceiling. Either way though, while we're busy upgrading our security, we might as well fix our door here. We have our gear door for the first little layer of protection, I guess, in the entrance, but then we have an interior door, which isn't exactly great, so we've swapped it out with a security door. And again, you'll notice a mighty big difference in the hit points, with an interior door having 250 hit points, while a security door has 2,500. After this, we ended up sending a caravan to a nearby New California Republic settlement to do some trading, basically just selling off a few more textiles, of course, as well as our typical chem fuel shipment to them. And in exchange, we wanted some advanced components and plasteel, of course. As they were out trading, meanwhile, back home, we were attempting our second taming of yet another Deathclaw, and to my surprise, yet again, we ended up taming yet another, completely successful. Now listen, I swear to God, I am not cheating, okay? If this Deathclaw was gonna go crazy and tear us apart, I would have let it. but it didn't. And this is kind of crazy that we're 2 for 2, but I'll just take a win for a win, you know what I'm saying? Now, we might have dosed Deathclaws, but we don't currently have any power within our little sunny sand city here, so I cannot wait for our caravan, which appears to have just returned with all of our resources. That way we can start working on yet another reactor. We also desperately needed plasteel, not only for the reactor of course, but also for our Vault-Tec security gear, so that'll be wonderful. Though that being said, right now our primary concern is of course going to be powering the vault in the city, so we finished up our second reactor, giving us electricity galore. By the time all this was completed, we also had a great big harvest from our second growing room, which includes wood, herbal medicine, and most importantly cloth, which is yet another crucial resource for our Vault-Tec security gear. Bolin the Overseer, being quite a whiz behind a smithy and a crafting table, would end up finishing up most of this gear. We had just enough resources to complete about 4 or so full sets. The recipients of this armor are going to be Darcy, Waleed, Shorty, and John. For now, they are going to be our security team, although obviously this is subject to change on a whim at any time I feel like, of course. And the reason for that, someone might prove useful in a different area that they are better well fit for. But never mind all that, as we have yet another research project to conduct. We are going to be working on Vault-Tec luxury items, meaning luxury floors and some furniture and things like that. Most of this, of course, will probably be for our tenants who end up paying us a good bit of money to stay inside the vault, so we'll see how that goes. As we're working on our research, we ended up getting contacted by the NCR. Apparently, one of their army colonels is fleeing a troubling political situation and is asking to stay at the vault here for 6 days. They're also afflicted with some type of illness, so we'll have to take care of them. In exchange for a good bit of plasteel, which we've been using quite a lot lately, I decided to accept, of course. Anything for an ally. And plasteel. At ease, Colonel. This Deathclaw won't eat you. Unless you really piss him off, of course. But you are in good hands otherwise. Not to worry, madam. We'll take great care of you. I must say that taking on quests like this from the NCR really helps us out, as they are a wonderful ally, and thus far there has been no downside to being their ally. Not only do their citizens and soldiers come here to participate in our business at our hotel and our bar, and hopefully soon they'll be renting out some rooms inside the vault from us, maybe just to live here or stay here temporarily while out of town on business, I don't know. But I suppose what I'm getting at is there is absolutely no downsides to being their ally. Uh-oh, is that the Enclave? Oh shit. Well, I suppose that this might be one of the few downsides to being their ally, and also for housing one of their army colonels. Not only are they all wielding laser weapons easily matching our own firepower, but they also appear to have someone wearing some XO1 power armor with a Gatling laser. I would be lying if I said I weren't at least a little bit nervous. Nevertheless, even if we don't want to fight, it would seem that a fight has come to us. I quickly rushed to replace some of our scrap turrets that were recently destroyed with some proper military-style turrets. But before we knew it, they were already making their way towards our walls. Ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves. This is going to be hellish. One of our new turrets, along with our security force made up of Shorty, John, and Waleed, began firing at them through the embrasures, but they were easily getting hounded by lasers. As they were attempting to retreat into the hallway, Shorty was downed and we would have to save him. We were becoming engulfed in the Enclave, quickly making their way to our city's entrance with their power armor quickly and very simply taking the brunt of our traps with ease. Thankfully, in these trying times, we no longer have to rely on our security, nor even our traps. We have an ace up our sleeves. Release the Deathclaws. Our vicious beast began ripping their troopers limb for limb. Quite literally, we saw arms and legs and fingers and toes flying through the rainy air. And thanks to our mighty beast, we would be able to push the Enclave out of our city before they could get their claws in deep. No pun intended. By this point, only one remained. The one wielding the Gatling laser cannon and wearing the XO1 power suit. We started ripping it off of his body and beating him with a large scrap hammer until he died. Well, that sure was fun while it lasted, eh, little fella? It's just a shame that we can't rip that power armor off of you, as well we've completely eviscerated it. But I suppose you could still make yourself useful by being Deathclaw Chow in the very near future. They've worked up quite an appetite from all the fighting. We would actually end up taking 2 Enclave troopers who were begging for their lives on the ground in a pool of their own blood into our prison to try to brainwash and or recruit them to the proper way of life under the mountain and in the vault. I suppose it wasn't all bad though. We had those fellows we were going to recruit, and John here ended up getting a Gatling laser cannon. And as you can see, this bad boy don't play around. Vault Tech Security just got a pretty major upgrade for keeping the peace, I'd say. It came at a pretty penny, though, in terms of cost, as many of our fine vault dwellers were very injured during the whole kerfuffle. Our Deathclaw even ended up getting a pretty major infection in his right lung, but thankfully we wouldn't have to cut through his tough, scaly skin to remove it, as he would end up overcoming it, I suppose you could say, not there long after. We also had a pretty big mess to clean up, but thankfully it was mostly items we had planned on using anyhow, or corpses we were going to feed to our new reptilian babies, and we would also end up replacing our turrets anyhow with some much better ones. We also ended up getting some cargo pod clusters landing in the hills nearby, which appeared to be some type of reinforced combat helmets. Not exactly who was shipping these where, but don't mind if we do. We would even end up giving one to our sentient Deathclaw to protect his little noodle. Since we already have security armor and helmets for our security force, I thought that these combat helmets might be pretty good for some of our dwellers that have to go out on trade missions and adventuring. Because of that great big attack and all the chores that were left over to do because of it, many of our folks were not feeling too great in terms of, emotional damage, so we let them drink some ice-cold Nuka-Colas that we have to try to calm them down. Even so, though, not everyone was taking it quite as well as the others, I'm afraid. But nevertheless, we shall endure. The worst of it is over, and not only will we survive, we will thrive in the wake of the Enclave. Speaking of which, the 2 Enclave soldiers going by the names Compton and Mister, who we had recently taken prisoner and brainwashed into being glorious vault dwellers, have now finally joined us. But they're naked, it would seem. So Boland and all his overseeing wisdom sent them into the armory to put on some proper suits to hide their willies, and he also had them go ahead and equip some laser rifles as well as a few knives and other melee sidearms that we had lying around to protect themselves as well as our interests. After a bit of time, Grace, the army colonel, was ready to go back home to her NCR superiors, and they would end up making good on their promise to deliver our plasteel as well as some luciferium, which I think we're going to sell. I really don't want anyone taking it. But with our mission accomplished, we had to return to our other mission of trying to tame Deathclaws. This was going to be our 3rd one, and it started attacking us. We ended up having to kill it, unfortunately, and Shorty was almost completely ripped apart. But thankfully he wasn't, and this is the exact reason why we send basically our entire group of vault dwellers out anytime we're doing this, because they're not very friendly. Who would have guessed? I would have. 4th time's the charm, as they say. Well, it would seem that that doesn't apply here. Also, I don't really think that's a saying. Anyhow, though, the 4th Deathclaw we tried to tame had to be murdered as well. Very unfortunate. That was the bad news. But the good news is we finished research into Vault Tech luxury furniture, and we can now create luxury furniture, flooring, walls, etc., etc. As mentioned, we're probably going to try to reserve this mostly for the rooms that we rent out to tenants who want to become vault dwellers, but I also decided to go ahead and upgrade the bedroom of the overseer. Nothing too fancy, well, actually quite fancy if I'm being honest, but it was just his floors and a royal dresser. That was the good news. Here's some more bad news. It would seem that the refurbishing of their bedroom between Pan and Boland was a little bit too much for their relationship to handle, and Pan ended up asking Boland for some space. and the two of them have split up, which means that the Overseer is now a bachelor. Oh my lord, he'll be cruising out there at the Giggling Geiger looking for a lucky lady, probably. Even more good news, the next Deathclaw we attempted to tame once Shorty was finally healed up a few weeks later ended up getting tamed by us and is now part of our growing Deathclaw army. Oh, what's that? Even more good news you want? Well, we ended up taming a fourth after 3 or 4 more failed attempts where we had to kill some, but we now have 4 Deathclaws in our possession, not counting our sentient one, of course. I also thought it would be super badass if we could ride them into battle against raiders and the Enclave alike, but unfortunately this appears to not be a rideable or mountable species. No worries, that's fine. They can still be quite useful to us during combat, of course. Now, this is all I'm going to be taming, I believe, for this episode, so if you wonderful people have some suggestions for Deathclaw names, feel free to leave those in the comment section down below. I'd really appreciate it. But before we do end this episode, I still have some research I'd like to complete into flak armor. Now, this is actually going to allow us to create some very, and I do mean very, basic raider power armor, but also some pre-war armors as well, which we've had our eye on for quite some time. While the Overseer is tirelessly working on this research, Compton would actually begin creating for us a few mini-turret backpacks for our new members, of course. And we would also end up expending a good chunk of our resources, or at least what we have left of steel and components, I should say, to create yet another high-tech research bench in our laboratory here. That way we can help the Overseer out with these research projects. This would indeed double the process quite quickly, and it would make flak armor a thing of the past, or at least the need to research it a thing of the past, as we're actually going to begin creating our first U.S. Army winterized armor, which we would end up giving to John. Yes, John is technically part of Vault Security, but no more. You see, John here is actually going to be leading any and all expeditions of trade and just adventures into the wasteland in general from here on out. And he needed something a bit less inconspicuous, as well as much more protective than the Vault Tech armor we've previously had. But my friends, I think that's going to be for next episode, of course, as we've been running for quite some time in this episode. We've done quite a lot in terms of expanding our vault, not so much our city. I think we will actually begin focusing on that more next episode, where we open up the vault to the wasteland and let some of these fine people, not anyone else, begin maybe renting some rooms off of us as tenants. We will, of course, have to dig out these rooms and actually furnish them and what have you, so it might take us a hot second, but by golly, we will do it for money, and probably for NCR dollars, caps, silver, any kind of currency, really. We'll also begin focusing a bit more on our Deathclaw breeding program that we have finally started in this episode as well, but all that and more next episode. I'll see you later. Hello, I just wanted to pop in at the end of the video, per the usual, as I always do, and say thank you all ever so much for watching today's video. If you want to like, subscribe, and all that stuff as well, it would really let me know that you guys like the video. Also, maybe a comment, whatever, all that stuff everyone else asks you to do on their videos, I would appreciate it, but if you don't feel like it, hey, that's cool too. I did want to mention, of course, I know that I'm having a lot of fun in this series, and it seems like you guys are as well, but if you want to have fun with me faster in this series, you can always subscribe to the Rat Specialist tier on my Patreon if you'd feel so inclined to do so, where you can actually gain early access to these videos a couple days ahead of time, or at the very least about a day ahead of time if you want early access to them, and of course it also helps me out a ton. Or if you want to go with the tier lower, which I think is the $5 tier, where you could also get your name added to the credits of each video, I would really appreciate that as well. But if you don't want to do any of that, that is also completely fine and totally cool. I just wanted to throw it out there though and kind of pump my own Patreon just in case you were unaware of it. But again guys, thank you ever so much for watching today's episode. I love you and I'll see you later. Goodbye.